All right. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to get more intimately into autism. And the reason that I pick autism for this part of the training is that autism is a spectrum. So you've got people over here who are high functioning, high IQ, verbal, able to communicate, all this. You've got people over here on this side of the spectrum that are not, that maybe can't talk, that maybe have a lower IQ, that are more profound, and everything in between. So if you can include and love and show Jesus to someone with autism, those skills will extrapolate out to someone who has Down syndrome, someone who has spina bifida, someone who uses a wheelchair, so on and so on and so on. Okay? So that's why we camp here with autism. Autism, there are three primary areas that are affected by autism. And those are, the first one is socialization. So with socialization, I come up. How you doing? Yeah, good. That's a social cue. I come up with my hand out. She knew I wanted to shake her hand. Now, if you do that exact same thing to somebody with autism, they could be, why are you trying to grab me? What? Or they could be, why are you trying to grab me? I'm not joking. So no. Social cues, primarily, for people with autism, they just don't get it. So they're not trying to be rude, know that. They just don't understand what you're doing. Now this isn't everybody, this is just general, of course, okay? But just know that those socialization cues that are so prominent that we know, how old are you? 13. She knows it at 13, okay? So everybody knows, you stick out the hand, you shake it, right? But no, not everybody knows it, okay? So just know.
At this point, we experienced a small technical issue with our camera. Here, Aaron begins speaking on the second area affected by autism, which is communication. Here, Aaron begins to use the example of a person with autism becoming fixated on the sound of an air handler. The sound becomes a source of frustration for the person. However, due to their lack of communication skills, they cannot explain why they are frustrated and hence begin to act out.
Filter it back as being not important, and you are still able to pay attention and engage, right? Right. Friends with autism, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to hear that air handler and they're going, that's all they're focusing on is the air, and it's annoying. Why does this guy keep talking, and why is that thing so loud? And that's going to be what's going on in the brain. And they don't have the ability to filter that out as being not important. Okay? And for those of you that are cold, for those of you that are cold, you have a jacket or a sweater or something that you can put on, right? But if you're affected by autism, you may know that there's something going on that you don't like, but you may not be able to verbalize what it is. You may not be able to understand, I'm cold, I need a jacket. You may not know that. But what you know is that you're not comfortable, you don't like it, and now we're going to have a problem. Because I'm here, I'm cold, I don't know I'm cold, but here I'm starting to get frustrated because I'm still cold. Here, I'm cold! And we're going to start getting some behavior. Okay? Now is that behavior defiant? No, he's cold. He's not able to communicate, but he's cold. So understand, behavior is communication. We'll talk about that more later. But behavior is communication. So with friends with autism, they're not always able to communicate. Okay? The third thing that autism affects is sensory integration. And sensory integration is simply the stimuli that we take in with our eyes, our ears, our mouths, our skin, everything from the outside that's coming in, that's an input, that's sensory integration into what we do. We know how to process it. We totally filter out the noise of the air handler because we know it's not important. So you listen to me. I was going to say because I'm the one that's important up here, but I'm not. What I'm saying is more important than the air handler. How about that? Let's go with that. So you filter out that and you listen to me. A friend with autism wouldn't be able to do that. Okay? We could categorize things into boxes of what's important, what's not important, and what we need to concentrate on, what we need to avoid. based on that. Even the feel of your clothes. How many of you guys thought about what your shirt feels like today? A couple. Okay, most don't. Yeah, most don't. You know, when I'm walking down the hallway, I don't think, oh, these pants feel nice against my legs. I don't think that, you know, because I know it's not important. So I filter it out. But a friend on the autism spectrum may not be able to filter that out. There may be a tag that's going on there in the back that drives them nuts. Many, many years ago, I dated a woman who would not touch wet laundry. I'm like, how do you do your laundry? She said, oh, my roommate moves it over for me. Okay. But that was her thing. The way wet clothes felt, she couldn't take it. I'm okay with that, so I could do laundry, but she wasn't, so she couldn't. That was just a thing. But her ability to be able to process, well, it's just a wet piece of clothes, it's no big deal. She wasn't able to do that. So that didn't make her anything other than that was her thing. So she had somebody do it for her. And she was able to wear clean clothes. She didn't smell bad, anything like that. So it was great. Okay, that was just her thing. But know that friends affected by autism will typically have sensory integration issues, and that could be something. The way the clothes feel on the body could even be an issue for them. And the way that these friends will deal with and handle and try to process this is typically twofold. And the first would be to explore, to try to get more of the sensation so they can try to figure out whatever it means. And this is where you would use a weighted blanket or a weighted vest or a hug swing or something like that. So if you've got somebody who is overstimulated, that hug swing, applying pressure to their body, can really be an excellent tool to help them soothe. But of course, you've got the opposite end of that. The other response, I call it running for the hills. They don't want more of the sensation, they want less sensation. And so if they get more pressure, they're going to react and try to get away and try to run and try to get to an environment that is less stimulating. And so anytime that we have space, I always suggest get a tent and put some tactile things in there, some balls or some kind of fidget toys or something like that you can put in there, and zip it shut so that you're reducing the harshness of the lights, you're dampening the sound around. You can even put a blanket in there so they can put it over their head. So again, it's quiet, it's dark, it's removing as many stimuli as you can so that then they can possibly start to de-stem, is how the industry terms it, to take all of the sensations that they're getting. It's been explained to me that autism is akin to us men who are December 24th Christmas shoppers, go to the mall on December 24th. It is loud, it is packed, it is hot, it is crazy, it is all over the place. Take that, multiply it by 1,000 every second of every day. That's akin to what it is in the mind of someone with autism, because they're not able to filter out, and it's chaotic. And so in this tent, in this environment, to be able to remove as many stimuli as possible gives them the ability to hopefully be able to de-stem a little bit. Okay? Now, we're going to look a bit at what it's like to be in the brain of a person with autism. I had the pleasure several years ago of hearing a speech by Temple Grandin. Has anybody ever heard of her? Yeah. She's pretty fantastic. She is one of the most accomplished persons with autism that I know. She has a PhD in engineering. She's done some amazing things in design of different kinds of agricultural equipment and all of these kinds of things. She's amazing. She's on the autism spectrum. And she was speaking at a conference that I was at, and she gave a 30, 45-minute talk on what it was like to be in her brain. And so I'm just like soaking in, trying to get as much as I can. And one of the things that she talked about is that people with autism will think in pictures. Specific pictures. Concrete thoughts. This is it. So when you think of a cathedral, what do you think of? Throw out some attributes of a cathedral that you think about.
Windows.
High ceilings?
Windows.
Windows?
Big.
Big? I always think of gargoyles. Yeah. Did you have one? Pillars? Yeah. So all these things, right? Every single one of those is pretty vague. When Temple thinks of a cathedral, Notre Dame. She will tell you every window, every color, every dimension, every aspect of Notre Dame. There is no ambiguity. There is no vagueness. It is concrete, it is specific, and it is tied to a picture. So in church, what do we talk about that could be considered vague or abstract? Say salvation. Salvation, good job, thanks. Yeah. Not very concrete, is it? No. Love, not very concrete. Faith, hope. These are all exceptionally vague concepts. So if you have someone who is a concrete picture thinker, and you say, do you want to invite Jesus into your heart? What did you just do? You freaked that kid out. Because he's thinking you're cracking his chest open, going to put in Jesus and seal him back up. That's what he's thinking. You're going to invite him into your heart. Ow! That's what he's thinking. I know we say it all the time. I know we do. And most of the time that's great. But no, if you've got somebody who's a concrete thinker, you're going to cause problems by asking that simple question. Okay? So just know that. Just a matter of awareness. Learn your kid. Going back to being a learner. If your kid's cool with that kind of vagueness of thought, sure, have that conversation. Absolutely. If he or she's not, change your wording now. Yeah. And if you don't know what to say, come to somebody that can help. Another piece is that kids on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum too, can tend to have auditory processing difficulties. So like me standing up here talking, that would be murder. But think about it for a 10-year-old in an elementary school classroom. You know, so if you're at a break point in your lesson, you say, okay, kids, I want you to line up. We're going to go to the restroom. Be sure to wash your hands, get a drink of water, and then come back to the room. And then get out your coloring pages, and we're going to color a picture, okay? Okay, go ahead and do that. How many directives did I just give? 7. If you've got a kid with auditory processing issues, you have just scrambled their brain. Because what they're going to do is they're going to do the first thing that you said, because that's the first thing they heard. So they're going to stand up, but they don't know why. Or they're going to get out their coloring book. Oops, I just hit my lip. They're going to get out their coloring book and they're going to start coloring a picture, because that was the last thing that you said. And you're like, what are you doing? It's not what I said to do. So you got to understand. And this is where our buddies are going to come into play. So if you've got a teacher that gives those 7 directives, then your buddy's going to come along, okay, go. We're going to line up the door, we're going to the restroom. And then the buddy's going to walk with them. Stand in line next to him. Okay, we're going to go out in the hallway, we're going to hang a left, we're going to go to the restroom. After the restroom, wash them. You know, so they're going to continually reinforce what's going on, so you only give 1 or 2 directives at a time, so that they're not overwhelmed with what's going on. Does that make sense? Okay. And the next piece to understand too is that there could be an aspect of unrealistic cause and effect. And I heard a story several years ago about there was a drought. We'll just say it was a month long. I don't know how long it was. And there was a family and a kid with autism. And so there's this drought. And then the family gets ready to leave. On the day that the drought is broken, so it's raining now. The family leaves, go to the car, there's a flat tire. So no rain, tires are good. Rain, tires flat. This kid now thinks rain makes things flat. So, when it comes time for him to leave on a rainy day, if this is a situation that's real for him, and he doesn't want to leave, or he starts freaking out, or it could be just something as simple as he doesn't like the way wet clothes feel on his body. But if something like that is going on, is he being defiant because he doesn't want to leave? No, he's scared. And so we have to understand that this could be a complete possibility. This could be a reality for him or her. It's not that they're trying to be a little stinker. Could be. Now I'm going to say, kids with disabilities can be stinkers too. Don't hear me wrong on that, okay? But this situation, this is totally real fear to him. Totally real fear to him. So we need to be aware of that, okay? Other things that you can expect from friends with autism, they are exceptionally literal. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I had a kid that I worked with in the school system one time who thought that a fire drill was literally the principal holding a drill named fire into the PA system to make that loud noise. That's what he thought a fire drill was. A drill named fire that makes that horrific noise. That's what he thought it was. Literal thinker. It goes back to concrete. It goes back to picture-oriented. That was a picture in his mind that he was able to formulate of what a fire drill could look like. And so that's where he connected with it. Okay? So understand that. We talked about liking schedules and organizations. Fixations is another thing that can be pretty common for people on the spectrum. I had the pleasure of teaching math to a kid one time who loved penguins. And so I got to learn an awful lot about penguins. Because what we would do is I'd say, okay, we're going to do math for 2 minutes, and then you can tell me a story about a penguin. And he made me get out my phone, and we would time off 2 minutes, and at 1:58, 1:59, 2 minutes. So Empire Penguins, you know, he totally cut me off. You know, that's the deal we made. I said 2 minutes, so 2 minutes is there. We're right. You know, he was totally fine to cut me off in that. But there were times where I had to rein in the story a little bit because they would get really long. So we'd do that. But just, you know, so we're not always at 2 minutes. Sometimes we'll be 2.5, and then one story. 2:45, and then one story. So we try to stretch it out. But use that. Find, again, be a learner. What's important to them? Do they like trains? Do they like tornadoes? The penguin kid, mid-semester, switched to tornadoes. So I went from learning about penguins to learning about tornadoes. It was really cool. But anyway, so learn that kind of stuff, okay? Because it can be gold. So we're going to read the Bible story. We're going to talk about the Bible story for 2 minutes. And then you can tell me one story about a tornado. We're going to talk about Jesus for 2 more minutes. And then you can tell me a story about a tornado. You know, alternate it like that. It's going to be an amazing tool for you guys. It's going to really, really get good fruit. The last piece I want to touch on this slide is eye contact versus paying attention. Choose wisely. You get one. If you say to a kid on the autism spectrum, look me in the eye, he's going to look in the eye, 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 look in the eye. That's all he's going to be thinking about. Look in the eye, look in the eye, look in the eye, look in the eye. And you might as well just not even be there. Because all he's going to be doing is trying to look you in the eye. Whereas I know that I am nowhere near good looking enough for anybody to focus on what I look like. But I want them to hear what I'm saying. Because what I'm saying is trying to get them to Jesus. There was a kid that I knew in a church. The church had carpeting on the walls. And so the texture of the carpet, he loved the way it felt. And so he would feel the carpet on the wall, and he would rub his cheek on it. And so he would be like, the class is going on. All the kids are sitting at the table and listening, teacher's teaching, and this kid is up here like this. And so then the teacher asks a question. Not a single one of the kids knew the answer, except this guy. And he stops, turns around, answers it, and then comes back to the wall. You know, if it takes that kid feeling up that wall to get him to Jesus, then my goodness, you feel that wall every second. I don't care. All right? Because again, I don't care if the kid can ever tell you what color my eyes are. But I care if he can tell you about Jesus. And if it takes him feeling the wall to get him to Jesus, then you feel that wall, buddy. Whatever it takes. Okay?